Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one, we are going to head over to Canada once again, and we're going to go to another brewery that I've never tried anything from before. Now, these guys are another relatively new addition to the local beer scene, but they've built up a very good reputation for themselves despite that short existence. From what I understand, these guys are very well respected in the category of New England hazy, whatever you want to call them, IPAs, but they have been doing a number of different styles in recent times as well, and their beers have been coming over here to Hong Kong fairly regularly. So yeah, I've been very curious about them and been wanting to try some of their stuff for quite a long time. But the beer that we're going to have a look at today is one that I've seen come over here maybe 2 or 3 times so far, and it seems that they're going to keep bringing this one in. So I'm guessing that this one is maybe one of their core range beers. But yeah, it's quite a straightforward one within the style category, but it is supposed to be very good actually. So needless to say, I'm really curious to see what this one's going to have in store for us. Hopefully it's another good beer, hopefully it makes for an interesting review, and as always, I hope that you guys watching enjoy my take on this one as well, and always cool to introduce new Canadian breweries to you here on Rampant Lion Reviews as well. That's one of the great things about Hong Kong. We get a lot of beers from New Zealand, Australia, Canada, and from the US as well, and it's things that I normally wouldn't be able to access back in Europe, although this brewery in fairness are getting out there a little bit more. But anyway, for this review we are going to go to a little place called Glen Robertson in Ontario. It's actually a bit closer to Montreal in Quebec, on the eastern side of the province, but that means that we're going to have a little look at my first beer from Wood Brothers Brewing Company. So this particular beer is called Dank Sideways. It comes in at 8.2% ABV, and this is a New England hazy Imperial Double, whatever you want to call it, IPA. So yeah, really looking forward to this. I've had this beer a couple of weeks. I was actually struggling to get information on this brewery to make the video, but yeah, finally I was able to find some nice articles and stuff, and all the relevant information about the owners and things, and I was happy enough with what I had to film this review. And now we can look at a few of their other beers, because there are a good few making their way over here. But yeah, my first review from Wood Brothers Brewing Company, who have a very good reputation. So yeah, let's crack on and see what this beer has in store for us. So, as always with my reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting though, just fast forward. All the usual links can be found in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that hopefully I can do in the future from Wood Brothers Brewing Company. This is the very first time I'm trying one of their beers, as I mentioned, but there's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The support that you give is massively appreciated, and remember, you can go into the channel homepage and search for beer using the geography tagging system. So just go in there, use the little search bar, put in your hometown, state, county, province, whatever you like. If I've reviewed beers from the area that you search for, they will pop up. Failing that, you can check out the playlist of beers from different countries. You'll find this one in the Canadian playlist, along with a number of other things. That's being added to quite regularly since I've been here in Hong Kong, because we do have good access to the Canadian beers. But yeah, check out the playlist of beers from the other countries as well, because there are some very interesting things on the channel these days. But yeah, let's go on to my brewery notes then, and I'll tell you a wee bit about Wood Brothers Brewing Company for the first time. So Wood Brothers, as I've mentioned to you already, are based in a little place called Glen Robertson in Ontario, which is to the southeast of Ottawa, the Canadian capital, but it's actually also to the west of Montreal, which is closer, and when you cross over the water you are in Quebec. But the project for Wood Brothers started back in 2017, but the company opened its doors a little bit later in 2019, and the main people behind this company are Mark and Natasha Rickard. There's Louis Castonguay and Dan Whitehead, and also Kurt McSwain as well. So Mark and Natasha are serial entrepreneurs, with the couple owning White Pine Lumber, which does, like, you know, they do furniture, they do house fixings. It's kind of like a joinery materials company. That's how I would describe them, if that at all makes sense. And Mark has his own design company as well. Kurt is a farmer and runs a company called Dalgara Farms, and his family have been farming this part of Ontario for at least 4 generations, and they're also producing a number of hops that are used in the beers here at Wood Brothers. And then Dan and Louis have worked as brewers and were involved at La Brosse Brewery in Pointe-Claire in Montreal, and they've also got their own brand as well, which is called Grave Digging Bros. And I'm not sure if they were actually grave diggers, if that was their kind of day job before they got into brewing, but yeah, they call themselves the Grave Digging Bros. And if you look at them on Instagram, you've got you've got Grave Digging Louis and Grave Digging Dan. I can't say this obviously, my speaking isn't very good today, but yeah, they've got their own brand called Grave Digging Bros, and they've also been involved at La Brosse Brewery in Montreal too. But all of the founders apparently kept their day jobs when they were getting the company off the ground. But prior to the official opening, they apparently brewed around 150 batches to perfect a number of the recipes, and I think much of the reason for this was that their license to brew had been a little bit delayed by the authorities for some reason. But the brewery itself is based on a 65-acre farm, and they tapped their first keg in the spring of 2019. And over the years, they've been continuing to build up the brewery infrastructure. This included in putting in a new brew house in 2020, and apparently they've tripled in size in terms of their output since foundation. They've got a tap room at the brewery which opens Friday and Saturdays, and like I said, over the years they've built up a very, very good reputation for their New England hazies. I think in the early days they were brewing exclusively New England hazies, but these days they're also doing a few kind of sours and some darker beers and things like that as well. But as of March 2024, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced 480 different kinds of beer according to Untappd. And like I say, this brewery have built up a very, very good reputation for themselves, and they're starting to get out there a little bit more actually. So yeah, really interesting brewery, and I've heard very, very good things about their beers. I've had this can a couple of weeks, but I wanted to save it to review when I actually had all the information on the brewery. It was quite difficult to find information on some of the founders and things like that, and I'm not sure how much these guys are producing a year and things, but you can go and look at photos of the brewery. It's a little kind of farmhouse type brewery, quite similar to the likes of Kent Falls and things that we visited in New England very recently. But yeah, that's everything I can really tell you about them. As I say, check out the brewery website if you want to learn a little bit more. Follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on. And you can check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn a little bit more about all the different kinds of beer that these guys have done. But yeah, I think we should go on then and have a little look at the beer itself. So as you can see, the artwork on this one is pretty straightforward. You've got the kind of nice nature, it looks like an oak leaf actually, with the hop flower on the other side. I do like the Wood Brothers symbol there. I still never figured out why these guys called themselves Wood Brothers. I'm not sure if it's a tribute to the music act, the Wood Brothers, but yeah, very simple artwork on this one. You can see just that kind of green band around the silver can. This can, incidentally, is 473 milliliters, which is one American pint, 16 fluid ounces if you want to use the Freedom scale. But yeah, it shows you on the side here, Dank Sideways, 8.2%, double IPA. This one apparently is hopped with Citra, a hop that we know very, very well. 14% alpha acid, American. It's going to give you a lot of kind of big juicy mango. It can give you the kind of stronger passion fruit and grapefruity characters as well, but depending on what your malt base is, it'll give you a wee bit of like lychee and gooseberry, and it can also give you a wee bit of a lemon limey character too. But yeah, Dank Sideways, 8.2% ABV. This one was canned on the 19th of October 2023. I've had this can a few weeks. We actually got this quite fresh, but like I say, I just couldn't find information on the brewery before filming the video, which is why we're drinking this one at about 5 months old, but should still be quite good. Yeah, let's get this guy out into the glass then and see what it's all about. Been really looking forward to trying my first Wood Brothers beer. A little bit of foam popping out as we open it, but yeah, the beer will get a wee bit excited. It smells lovely actually. Oh. This is really very nice. So, that looks really good actually. We just rearrange the cans so that my OCD is happy. There we go. So, you can see that this beer is poured pretty much as you would expect from a New England IPA. So yeah, in terms of the head on this one, before it disappears, I would say we've got a finger of a frothy, kind of cream coloured head there. Medium-sized bubbles on the surface, just kind of sitting there, and as you move further up, you've got a lovely, more kind of foamy, bubbly character. This one a wee bit bumpy too, but yeah, I would say a kind of cream coloured head coming out of this beer. In terms of the colour of the overall beer, I would describe it as being akin to a kind of mango juice type colour actually. So remember, the colour of your beer depends on a few things. One, the type of malts that you use. This goes a long way to determining your EBC rating. Two, length of your wort boil is also going to play a role, because the longer you boil the wort, the more the sugars caramelise, and thus you get a darker colour of beer. But any barrel aging that you do or adjuncts you put into the beer will affect its colour as well, but you don't often have to care about that when it comes to different kinds of IPAs, unless you're talking fruit IPAs. But yeah, lovely kind of bright yellow kind of mango juice colour to this one. In terms of the level of haze in this beer, if we shine the light through it, it has got a little bit of soupiness and gloopiness to it, but it's not the soupiest and gloopiest of New Englands that I've come across at the 8.2% level. So yeah, remember, the level of haze in these beers depends on the oat content, wheat content, and to a degree what yeast you use. That can vary from brewery to brewery and beer to beer. But yeah, this one certainly has an appropriate level of haze for 8.2% ABV, but not the thickest and creamiest looking of New England doubles that I've seen. One or two big bubbles sticking toward the side of the glass in this one. A few little ones making their way up toward the surface of the head there, and the head has just faded away to be a thinner, more kind of foamy layer now, but you've got that nice ring around the edge of the glass too. But yeah, I really like how everything kind of pieces together in terms of appearance for this beer. It looks great. So yeah, I think that's everything we need to say about the appearance of this beer. Let's have a wee look at the aroma then and just see what it's going to have in store for us. Oh yeah, that smells really nice. Now, it gives you everything you'd want. You've got a good bit of like kind of big breadiness in there, kind of a little bit of creaminess as well, and you've also got the big juicy fruitiness and a nice little bit of kind of green component. It's very well balanced actually. As I've said in many New England reviews before, for me there are 6 elements to think about with this flavour. You've got the more kind of rye leaning grainy side of things. You've got the sort of more farmhousey and yeasty character, and those 2 elements I think are a bit more common in American brewed New England IPAs. I don't know whether that would also apply to Canadian, so we could say North American, but I think more farmhousey and rye leaning New Englands are a bit more common over there. But then you've got wheaty bitiness, oaty creaminess, barley malt bread, and also the sweeter side of things. Those are the 6 elements you should consider when it comes to New England IPAs. And for me, this beer comes across as being quite barley malt leaning, but I'm also getting quite a wee bit of the more kind of rusticy, farmhousey, yeasty character coming out of this one, which is quite interesting. But we also have to remember that North American wheat, I think, is a little bit smoother than European wheat. European wheat's a bit drier and a bit more bitey, and I think the oats in America are a little bit more dry. European oats are a wee bit more creamy, so you have to remember these differences in the grain bills as well when you're looking at these beers. So I think with this one, there might be, maybe I'm getting a wee bit more of the oaty dryness, a bit of the kind of more farmhousey, yeasty character, and quite a little bit of the barley malt as well. But obviously this part of Ontario is very well known for like grain production, and obviously the owner, one of the co-owners, which one was it? They were producing hops and things too, so this has got quite a little bit of local produce in it, I'm sure. But the malty backbone of this one is quite interesting. So let's just break the beer down and describe the aroma a little bit more in depth for you. So for me, the backbone of this beer, you've got a lovely little bit of that kind of fresh, white bready bread crust in there. If you think of a hedgehog roll, there's quite a little bit of that coming out of this one. So fresh hedgehog bread roll in this one, that's the backbone of your beer. You're certainly getting a wee bit of, there is a little bit of woody and crackery character coming out of this one, as you would expect too. So yeah, woody, crackery notes, kind of hedgehog bread roll. There's a wee bit of like a wholemeal brown bready character as well. And you've also got more of a kind of fresh, fluffy, white bready character coming out of this one. Yeah, wholemeal brown bread, a little bit, there's a wee bit of that sweeter wholemeal brown bread in there, fluffier white bread for sure. And then at the back of the nose, you do get a little bit of bitiness from the wheat, but as I say, North American wheat, I think, is more smooth than European wheat. But we have to remember that North America's geographically is huge. Soil profiles and water profiles can vary quite dramatically, and that is of course going to affect how your grains taste and smell. So yeah, I think there's a wee bit of wheaty bitiness in the back of the nose for sure. The oats are in there too. There's a wee bit of a kind of creamy oaty character. Yeah, lovely kind of smooth creamy oaty type note coming out of this one. The oats have got a wee bit of dryness to them, and as I've said on the channel many a time before, oats are a good indicator of how fresh your New England IPA is. Essentially, the creamier they smell and taste, the fresher the beer is, the drier they smell, the older the beer is. So there are a few things in this beer to think about in that particular context. Yeah, it's the malty backbone of this one is quite nice. So I'm getting a wee bit of creaminess out of the oats. There's a wee bit of dryness in there as well. I'm not getting too much in the way of sweetness out of this. There is a little bit of like Werther's Original butter candy sort of thing, but that really is not overly prominent in the aroma. This beer comes across as being more like bready, wheaty, kind of yeasty. There's a whole host of stuff kind of coming out in this one. So yeah, the way that this beer goes together in that regard, I think, is really, really very nice. So it gets a big thumbs up from me. Yeah, the malty yeasty side of this one's quite interesting. On the hoppy side of things, it's kind of what you'd expect. If this is single hopped, I'm pretty sure it was. You've got a little bit of that. You do get a little tiny touch of earthiness on the green component. Nice kind of bright floral aromaticity to it as well. A little bit of grassiness too. And on the fruity side of things, it's, if you know Citra, it's giving you what you'd expect. There's a wee tiny touch of grapefruit in there, a good little bit of passion fruit, but the focus is on the mango, and it's quite a ripe, juicy mango, I would say. So yeah, bit of grapefruit, bit of passion fruit, lovely big kind of ripe, juicy mango, apricot. Yeah, there's a nice little bit of juicy apricot in there, ripe mangoes. Yeah, the way that goes together is absolutely lovely. So we've got apricots, we've got mangoes. There's also quite a wee bit, I'm getting like a little bit of a lemon limey note out of this one. Maybe a wee tiny touch of like lychee or something like that. But it just comes across as being very, very familiar in terms of its fruitiness, this one. I think we're going to get a bit more complexity out of the fruitiness when we actually taste the beer, to be honest with you, rather than the aroma. But yeah, more lychee and kind of almost like gooseberry type notes coming out of this one, which is interesting in a New England, because normally those notes are, if you have Citra, those are normally notes that you get more out of a single hopped West Coast IPA in a sense. But aroma wise, this beer is really nice. The hoppy characteristics in this are quite interesting. But remember, with IPAs you have 3 different kinds of hoppings. You can do early addition hopping, which takes place within the first hour of the wort boil. That gives you mainly bitterness and a deeper, danker aroma. Late addition hopping, which takes place within the last half hour of the wort boil, that gives you mostly flavour and aroma, but a little bit of bitterness, and it will give you a brighter aroma, I would say, as well. Then you've got dry hopping, which takes place after the wort boil is complete, and that is all about flavour and aroma, and again that contributes to a brighter green component. So you have to remember with these beers that that New England IPAs rely on late addition and dry hopping, which is why they're more kind of bright and soft, whereas like West Coast IPAs use all three, which is why they're deeper and danker in terms of their flavour and aroma. So yeah, definitely worth bearing in mind. But yeah, as I always say, take a little bit of time to enjoy the aroma of the beer before you get stuck into it, because that is half the experience when it comes to these sort of things. But yeah, let's have a taste of this one then and see how it turns out. This is Dank Sideways, an 8.2% New England Hazy Imperial Double, whatever you want to call it, IPA. My first taste of a beer from Wood Brothers Brewing Company in Glen, Robertson, Ontario, Canada. Slàinte, skål, cheers, and a big shout out to all my Canadian beer tubing colleagues. Make sure you go and check out the likes of Lee Russell and Redbeard and all of these guys. Slàinte, skål, cheers. Santé. That's really pretty bloody good. If that's this beer at 5 months old, it's held up incredibly well. You can imagine what this thing's like fresh, straight off the tap. Damn. That is pretty damn good, actually. Yeah. I actually have in the fridge, I've got another collaboration. I've got a collaboration beer that these guys have been involved in, which I think it was Third Moon Brewery from the States, which is another brewery I've never encountered. I'm looking forward to that. That's a triple IPA, but that's a really damn good New England double. So I doff my cap, I take my hat off to the guys at Wood Brothers. That's pretty good, and for a single hopped Citra as well, that's pretty impressive. Yeah, very good stuff. Let's do as we always do. We'll go through the beer and the different parts of the palate and just break it down. So middle third of your palate then. The backbone of this beer is that lovely, fresh, kind of white bready bread crust in there. Think of like a hedgehog roll. It's kind of like that. As you move further forward on that middle third of your palate, you've got a little touch of like woodiness in there, and then you've got a kind of light Jacob's cream crackery layer coming out of this one. So yeah, you've got a really nice kind of Jacob's cream crackery sort of layer to this one. But then once you get over the impact, once you get over the kind of impact flavours in this beer, you get a lot of kind of smoothness and slight, a slight sweetness out of the bready character of it too. That's really interesting. Yeah, I like how all of that pieces together actually. Yeah, for me, that is pretty awesome. So I like the I do like that kind of cracker layer that you have, but then you've got a few layers of bread. So above the kind of Jacob's cream crackery layer, you get a more kind of grainy but slightly dense layer of a wholemeal brown bready character coming out of this one. But then on top of the white bready character, you've got a little bit. On top of that kind of brown bready character, you get a more white bready note. And these bready layers actually, they've got a little bit of dryness to them, but the further you go into the aftertaste, they give you a little touch of more sweetness. Yeah. So definitely a little touch more kind of sweetness coming out with the bready notes in these beers the further into the aftertaste that you go. But yeah, as I say, you've got the brown bready layer, the white bready layer, and that's definitely barley malt. But you can feel above the white bready layer you've got a slightly denser white bready layer too, and that's definitely the wheat. And the wheat's quite smooth in this one. As I say, American wheat for me, or North American wheat, I don't know whether we can generalise in this way, but at least I would say that the North American wheat is a little bit more, it's a little bit smoother and a little bit kind of drier in a sense, I would say as well. So yeah, these are things to think about actually when you're doing these reviews, just the difference in the grain bills. But yeah, the wheat has a little bit of smoothness and density to it, but at the back of that middle third of the palate, there's a wee bit of bitiness starting to come out of the beer too. So yeah, the way that that goes together, I think, is really quite nice. But above the wheaty layer, you start to get the oats, and you can feel if you go down the middle line of your tongue, the oats are actually quite nice and quite smooth and quite creamy. But as you move out toward the sides of your palate, it's as you move out toward the side of your palate there, it's got a little bit more of you do get a little bit more of that kind of oaty dryness as well, so you can feel that you've got the creaminess down the middle, the dryness out toward the edge, and then above that, like in this dead centre of your palate, there's a wee bit of a sweetness coming out of this one, and of course you will get that because of the booziness of the beer, so you can feel there's a little bit of like Werther's Original Butter Candy Butterscotch in the dead centre of your palate, and then as you move out toward the edges of your palate there, you start to get like a little bit more of a kind of McVitie's digestive biscuity sort of thing. It reminds me a wee bit of Golden Promise, which is quite a popular malt among European hazy brewers actually. A lot of European brewers love to use that Golden Promise malt. So yeah, the malty base that you have in this beer is actually really nice and quite well done. But I think at that we've covered everything we need to about the middle third of the palate with this beer. Let's go to the back third of your palate. And as I often say, back third of your palate is going to give you very similar flavours to the middle third of your palate, just at different intensities. So border region between middle and back third of your palate, you've got the brown bread in the base, the white bread on top, and you can feel just a wee bit of that wheaty bitiness at the very tip. The back third of your palate, you've got a more kind of dry bread crusty base in there. You can feel the sort of brown bread, you feel the crackery layer in there as well. Then you've got the brown bready layer, which feels a little bit lighter, a little bit more airy. Then above that, you've got the white bready layer, which again feels a little bit lighter and more airy. And then as you push back over the top of that, you can feel some of the drier and more bitey aspects of the wheat coming out of the beer. Then above everything else, you've got the yeasty side of things. So let's focus on that yeasty part of the beer just now. So yeah, yeasty side of the beer for me is quite nice. You've got like a more dense, sweet brown bready character in the middle. As you move further out from that, you start to get a more kind of rusticy, woody, crackery sort of white bready character. Then it's got a wee bit of the bread crust around it, and as I say, that sits on top of everything else on the back third of the palate. So definitely you can feel that the back third of your palate, the flavour is taller, and then as you move further forward into the middle third of your tongue, it just kind of condenses down and squashes together that little bit more. So yeah, the malty and yeasty side of this beer I think is really nice, and like I say, I like the way that everything pieces together in this one, because this beer, it has a bit of, it's quite I find it's quite barley malt and yeasty leaning, but you do have little elements of wheat and oat in there. So yeah, and there's a tiny little bit of sweetness too. So this beer is interesting on the malty yeasty side of things because it's given you 5 of those 6 elements that I was talking about earlier. But yeah, interesting for sure. Let's focus on the hoppy side of things then. So, back corners of the palate, you do have a little touch of earthiness in there. As you move further forward, it's got a little bit of herbal character to it, and as you push toward the front corners of your tongue, it's got a little bit more of a kind of floral aromaticity coming out of this one too. So yeah, you've got a nice sort of floral aromaticity there. It's not overly bitter and it's not overly dank in a sense, but you do get a wee bit of dankness out of it into the aftertaste, and I guess that suits the name of this one as well. So yeah. yeah, see, I do like how all of that, I do like how all of that pieces together for sure, so it gets a big thumbs up from me. Yeah, around the front curve of your tongue, there's definitely a wee bit of a lighter, more grassy, zesty sort of thing coming out of it, so yeah, floral notes, grassy, zesty sort of thing. Yeah, it's awesome. I really like that. This is a very, very good New England double, this one. But yeah, yeah, definitely more dankness and grassy zestiness coming out of this into the aftertaste. But let's focus on that front third of your palate then and the fruity side of things. So the border region between front third and middle third of your palate, you can feel there's a little bit of bready build up in there. In the base, wee bit of brown bread, the white bread above that. Then the base of that, front third of your palate, you've got the bread crust in there, the brown bread, the white bread, maybe a little bit of the wheat, and then you get that nice oily bubble where the juicy fruity esters roll their way out of the beer. So let's focus on that fruity side of things. So yeah, the back of that the back of that front third of your palate on the fruity side of things then, and that nice oily part, you do get a wee touch of that stronger grapefruity note for sure. As you move further forward, you get a little bit of the kind of passion fruity character coming out of the beer. So yeah, grapefruit, passion fruit, more of a kind of ripe, juicy mango. Yeah, ripe, oily, juicy mango. But I think that grapefruit does linger there too, and it kind of builds in with the dankness. It's interesting. If I didn't know that it was only single hop, I would have thought there was maybe like a wee bit of Chinook or something in this. Yeah. So yeah, bit of grapefruit, juicier passion fruit, big juicy mango as well, and then, pardon me, I would say yeah, as you go into the middle of that front third of your palate, there's like a wee bit of juicy pineapple on top, there's wee bits of apricot and things underneath. Then yeah, as you move into the front half, you certainly have a wee bit more, it gives you like a wee bit more of a kind of lemon limey sort of thing. It's really interesting. Yeah, definitely more of a sort of lemon limey type character. You do get a wee tiny hint of that gooseberry lychee thing that Citra can give you. That comes out in the aftertaste, but yeah, more of a sort of lemon limey character, especially as you reach the kind of front tip of the tongue as well. So you can feel that just behind the kind of grassy esters too. But yeah, all in all, really solid New England double, this one. I'm certainly impressed with this. But yeah, let's round off this review then with a wee look at the mouthfeel. That's the end of the tasting section. So mouthfeel wise, for me, this beer, I'd say top end to mid-bodied, bottom end to full-bodied. The carbonation is quite smooth in this one. The water profile on this strikes my interest as well, because it's kind of clean, but it still has a little bit of an oily character to it as well. Yeah, bit of a more, yeah, you've got a more kind of oily, and yeah, slightly oily, but still quite wet and clean type quality to this one. So yeah, top end of mid-bodied, bottom end of full-bodied, clean, but slightly oily. Really nicely done. In terms of IBUs, I think this beer is 30 or maybe 40 IBUs. It's quite common to put a little bit more bitterness in these doubles just to kind of balance everything out. So I wouldn't be surprised if this one is 40, and the dankness does kind of build up a little bit further into the aftertaste. It could potentially even be 50 IBUs, something like that. The bitterness does build, like I say. The malt base has a bit of graininess underneath, a bit of smoothness in the middle, and a very slight kind of creaminess and sweetness on top. Then with the fruitiness, you've got an interesting mix. You've got the Citra's kind of showing its whole spectrum here. Citra is a very good single hop actually, because it's got the kind of more zesty grapefruit, the kind of juicy tropical fruits, and a wee bit of the kind of lemon limey sort of thing too, and it shows itself really nicely in this beer. So yeah, really solid but quite straightforward New England double, this one, I would say. Yeah, so big thumbs up to Wood Brothers for this. I'll need to have a look at some of their other beers that are coming through Hong Kong, because we're getting these every couple of weeks, it seems. So yeah, I think we can leave it at that for this one. This was the Dank Sideways, an 8.2% New England Hazy Imperial Double, whatever you want to call it, IPA from Wood Brothers Brewery in Glen, Robertson, Ontario, near Ottawa, in Ontario, but just west of Quebec as well. Montreal in Quebec, I should say. So yeah, very good beer province is Quebec as well. Need to get over there and visit at some point, I would say. But yeah, let's leave it at that for this one. Once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comments section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Wood Brothers as well, and we will see about returning to these guys very soon. Had great fun reviewing this one, and very impressed with the quality of stuff that these guys are doing. So definitely more will be needed from this brewery at some point soon. But until the next time, Slàinte, Skål, cheers, check out my social media, check out their social media, Slàinte, Skål, and Santé.